Welcome to Between Dimensions with Twin Essence. I'm Lacey, and I'm Marley, and we're your Starseed Lightworker hosts. As collective ascension guides, we are always navigating our 3D and 5D worlds. In other words, we're between dimensions, learning to embody our multidimensionality just like you. During Between Dimensions, you get the best of both worlds 5D conversations in a 3D format. In this episode, we are joined by Kristen Stuart, and Kristen is a spiritual mentor and divine feminine leader. We are going to be digging into Kristen's spiritual journey and her experience and work with Ascension and divine feminine leadership. Welcome, Kristen. We are so excited to have this conversation with you today.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, and I'm really excited for what we'll want to transmit forth for everyone that's listening.
Digging into all the hard-hitting questions first, our spiritual topic question for tonight is going to be, when do you feel most like your authentic self? So viewers, you are welcome to put it in the chat. Anybody watching the replay, you are welcome to put it in the comments. But Kristen, let's start with you first.
Oh my gosh. I love this question because right away I immediately see just the most exquisite landscape that is Gaia, Mother Earth. And when I feel like my most authentic self is when I'm out communing with her. And so I live in the Canadian Rocky Mountains. My life, well, I've had multiple lifetimes within this one, of course, but one of the um, like the past life that I lived was as a climber, as an alpinist, and
Mm.
also I worked as an international hiking guide. And so my passion is still to be in the mountains in whatever way possible, to be in the mountains with the waters, wherever it is, with nature, and just being in that space of reverence, connection, devotion. It brings an aliveness through me that expands so much in my life because that's where I really feel there's a home to this frequency.
Love that. I think I have like two images that come to mind when I think of this question. And I think this might just be part of my um kind of like embracing the multidimensionality because I immediately picture like when I spend time at our family's lake, I should say our cabin. But I think of like the days where you're kind of free to do whatever you want, and I'm literally like, I'm not wearing makeup. My hair is like usually like half dried, half wet from being in the water. I'm in my swimsuit, like wandering around. And then the other image is like is is like the loud expressive part. Oh, yeah. And so I immediately think of like pink is my color. So I think of like me wearing like a fuchsia faux fur jacket. And like it's really loud to a lot of people, but I'm like, how do you not have a fuchsia jacket in your closet? Like that's my thing. So it's like
Yes.
both those images come to mind.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a I think I think of like whenever Lacey and I are traveling, just because I think that's when we feel freest, right? And like when you're safe and you feel free, like you can really be your authentic self. And so it's like what we get up to when we travel, or to Lacey's point, like when we're going to like concerts or something, and we're I'm wearing like rainbow pants or something. Like it's just me, like it's me walking the streets of New York City. No big deal in rainbow pants. And then like obviously, like you said, Lacey, just those slower days. I mean, I just immediately go to like a weekend where I have no plans. Like that's when I feel most authentic. Like because I can
Yes.
move intuitively. I can just there's no obligation.
I love that. I have a immediately what I think about is I love having one day a week where there's no agenda. It's simply follow the prompts. Go to wherever the soul feels called, like whether it's go for a trail run in the mountains or put on one of my favorite outfits, and which is a huge part of expressing authentically. It's like, what's your vibe? And for people, they say it's weird to see you without a hat because I'm known for my hats, my hat wardrobe, which I literally been wearing these since I was 15 years old. I'm now 50, but it's like being able to move and just follow the freedom frequency ultimately of going with whatever flow wants to happen that day and not needing to be anywhere at any time for anyone with any real responsibilities.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
I wish I could have a good hat game. I do not. Jealous. Don't have a good game at all. like shopping, I'm always the one that's like, come on, does it work? No, it doesn't work. It's like, it must not be my thing. I think we're too short. We're 5 feet tall, so I feel like I'm like hat game is not there. Okay. Like pants, like I can really accentuate the legs, believe it or not, as short as we are, but look, I look like an elf or like yeah. I look like the kid playing dress up where you're like, okay, I don't want to look like that. Yeah, it's always like on a scale of 1 to 10, do I look like divine feminine or like I went in my mom's closet today?
I love it. But I also feel that what we wear is expressing aspects of our multidimensional remembrance of our alternate timelines. And so it's just like I remember wearing the robes leading the women in the temples in Egypt. And so of course when I'm there, I'm feeling that frequency, and then the medicine woman vibes, which has been a huge part of my path as well, where in the shamanic lineages, and there's a certain, yeah, there's certain colors when you're speaking about rainbow, like I could immediately see timelines of the that remembrance within you, and this is what we're tapping into, and that's the beauty of the artistry. We're really transmitting higher consciousness through our art, which is our brands and what we're wearing and what we feel. It's like this feels like me, this outfit feels like me, and that's the beauty. We each have our unique expression. And so when we tap into that and then dress in this way, it brings an energy alive that is so magnetic.
So true. I love it. And I think I've experienced versions of it with like when you're sending and you change frequencies, like there have been points in my life where I'm like, I cannot wear XYZ in the closet because it is no longer me. Like you like outgrow it frequency
I also
wise.
think it's so cool because it's like most things on this path, like it's very third dimensional, it seems, right? Like what I'm wearing. But at the same time, it totally does change your energy. It changes your frequency and it totally sends a signal, right? It's a total transmission in itself of like, I put this on. I feel like whenever Lacey and I are doing photo shoots, like when we're wearing certain brands, there's and things that we love, like you put it on, it's totally different what you're emitting. And I love that. I love that. It's multidimensional.
It is. It really is. And it also can be, you wind up upgrading your closet because you're ascending into a different frequency, and suddenly you've outgrown the frequency of what you used to wear. And you also become much more attentive to the frequency of fabrics because they're
Mm.
supporting the expansion of your auric field, the expansion, elevation of your frequency. So yeah, there's so many things to this. We could do a ascension fashion
I love
path
it.
talk.
Totally. That's a clip it. That's right there. That's gonna go viral on social media. Um, so let's dig into your spiritual origins. Like, where did your spiritual journey start? Are you a person that felt like from birth on, like young age on, you had this connection? Is it something that bloomed and opened up later? Is there an event? Like, let's go there.
Sure. I mean, everything, a lot is hindsight. What I will say is I was drawn, I was always curious, spiritually curious as a child. I grew up in northern Canada, northern Alberta, surrounded by Indigenous reservation. And so I was actually getting to participate in Indigenous ceremony like sweetgrass ceremony when I was a child in school. And it piqued something. There was something to this that I felt there was a familiarity with it. But I would say that well, the next stage would have been in 2002 when I stepped on a yoga mat. I felt the call to begin this path, stepped on a yoga mat, felt something I hadn't felt before, knew that that's what I wanted to teach and share with the world at that time. And and little did I know that I call yoga the snackatizer of awakening. Is like I had no idea where we are about to go. That was just starting to open me and my field and understanding of this path of union, this return home and into the remembrance of the light and the divinity that we're here to be. So it was like, here's the snack, you feel good, you're open, energy's moving. I felt amazing after that class, after Shavasana. And then, we continue this ascension path. Is like, oh, now I'm about to like dive into the shadow. That's the next layer and levels that I've got to, start to bring through. But my big awakening was in 2011. It was I was prompted, I felt the pull to go to Peru with my teacher mentor at the time for her retreat, and it was specifically scheduled over the 11 11 11 portal. So it was just such a strong call. I knew I was selling my clothes. I was doing whatever I could. I was a yoga teacher at the time, and I was doing whatever I could to make sure that I would be there. And in the Sacred Valley of Peru, I went into a state of samadhi. I merged with the one field. I merged with God. And it's like I say, I met God and was in this state of oneness. And I saw, that's when I saw the truth of who we are. I saw the truth of reality beyond what I could see with my eyes, yet my eyes were actually showing me what is in the unseen realm, which I say is where the 99.9% of reality exists, is in the unseen. And so it was like the mountains, the apus, which are called mountain spirits. It's like the mountains all started to shape shift and show me their faces and show me their transmissions of consciousness. And I would see consciousness pulsing through every aspect of the land, the mountains, the flowers. And I knew that I was in a different frequency. I was receiving, and I was also understanding the truth of who I was beyond this human existence, this human body. I'd been on the path of yoga already for 9 years and studies and studentship. However, this took me into the next wave. And of course, it felt like being hit with 5,000 volts of light, and my body and nervous system were only prepared for a much smaller amount. And so that was an accelerated ascension for me. Many would refer to it as a Kundalini awakening. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, so it would be that level of pulse. Like it was this whole surging of energy that came into me.
Were you super consciously aware of that at the time? Or was it
No.
okay? And that's what I was wondering about because sometimes we go through these experiences, they're very it's it's multidimensional, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like your 3D physical state is having one reaction to it while your higher self is like up here like running
Yeah.
the show, for lack of a better phrase. And so I'm
Sure.
just curious, like, as you're kind of processing through that, like, what level of consciousness was there for you, and like, is it something that in hindsight now you're able to really figure out what was actually occurring there?
Absolutely. At the time, it was just the greatest feeling of love I had ever known. I was just
Mm.
like being wrapped in this embrace of the highest, most blissful state of being, and then just living in that, and just like every 3D experience was at another level. It's like, oh my gosh, this is the nicest taxi driver in the world. This food is the greatest tasting food I've ever experienced. Like everything was ecstasy and bliss. It was that, and the surging forth of that state until it was not. And then there was a massive crash ultimately. But I was also, at that time, I was living in a very high adrenaline lifestyle. This was when I was climbing. My husband's an international mountain guide, and so it was just living at this high state of adrenaline, which had trained me to feel that that is normal, even though it's not. So it was a beautiful cocktail of awakening that soon after I returned from the Sacred Valley, I was coming back to launch a yoga studio, which was my dream, called Sacred Roots. And within 7 months, I was on the floor in the hospital in suicidal psychosis. So it's just
Wow.
a big it was everything just accelerated, and I didn't realize that there's just multiple experiences going on, and I didn't realize what was actually happening. So I was ignoring all the signs and the signals, which I was also used to doing, overriding what was going, like what I'm feeling, and just be stronger than this, all of this sort of thing as I'm launching this business. And so, but eventually I stopped sleeping, and I wasn't sleeping for about a couple of months, and eventually, of course, we know what happens when you're not sleeping. And so I was losing capacity very quickly and trying to fight and force my way through all of it. And then there's this point where I couldn't get up. I couldn't get up. Um, I was not present. I was just in constant panic attacks and living in a very dysregulated, dysfunctional, and dangerous state, really, internally. And so the crash got to happen, which then I needed to climb my way out of, and come back from, heal my nervous system, heal my endocrine system, move through the shame of failing. This dream crashed down quickly, and there was a lot of impact from that. In my life, in my relationship, in my finances, all of the pieces of it, and then the internalization of all of it, while also living in this state where I couldn't function. I had no energy to function. It was all I could do to get up out of bed for a brief amount of time. But I was afraid. I was in this place where I was afraid to go outside. I was afraid if I went to the mailbox, a 2-minute walk from my place, I wouldn't have the energy to make it back to my home. So, and there's layers to all of this. It's definitely a multi-layered story, so to speak. But that was the big awakening, and 2012 was considered to be the last big wave of awakening before 2020, when we look at the intensity of what's been coming in cosmically and supporting what's happening here on this planet ultimately. So that was the big one. That was the big wake up, and also recognition that I had been living my life and operating on top of a bed of trauma that I was conveniently avoiding, by keeping myself living the adrenaline in the mountains too.
Wow, that is so intense. And I guess, like, how did you lead yourself out of that? Like, because
Yeah.
I mean that's hard, especially when you were like, this was my dream too with the yoga studio. Like, and sometimes we attach ourselves to the dream, and then like if it
Mhm.
doesn't happen, you're like, "Oh, but what now? Like, who am
Yeah.
I if I don't have that?"
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of identity crisis. There's a lot of shame to work through, and feelings of failure, and letting people down, letting my team down, my teachers and community, and all of that. Like, it was just really interesting to go through that. And so, I mean, it started with knowing that when I finally was able to move to that place of, this happened for me, because what I'm supposed to do here is far greater than what I could have done with this yoga studio. So it's like God, the universe just got it out of the way right away. And I got to awaken to, well, one, understand consciousness on another level, understand energy and frequency, and how we have all power within us to heal ourselves. And the foundation of it, I distinctly remember, it was like I was in this, it's like, am I awake? Am I asleep? Where am I? I remember having this vision that it was when I was in that, like, I just had no energy moving in my body at this time, because I'd crashed my system so hard. And I was trying to, like, save the yoga studio. I was trying to climb out of this. And the vision was climbing this metal ladder out of this endless pit, bottomless pit. And I was swinging ice axes, which I was familiar with because that was part of what I did. And I remember swinging this ice axe and hooking the rung, and, like, with all my might, pulling myself up, and then swinging another ice axe. And then I heard, and it was like I said, it was the voice of the Divine Mother. And she said, let go. Let go. I've got you. Because I remember, like, trying to go, and I was like, I can't do this. I don't have the strength in me right now. And I just let go. And I remember feeling like I was falling forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, and then eventually crash landed, looking up, and I described it as being at the bottom of the Grand Canyon at the base of Mount Everest. And it's like, this is about to be the climb of my life. And I'm glad I've trained as a climber for this last, you know, 10 years of my life, basically. And so it was moving my mind. I had to move my mind into that state of expansion, which took the practice of acknowledging no matter how dark it was, I assigned myself the task of finding beauty every day in some way and starting to work with building out heart brain coherence again and expanding the electromagnetic field of my heart, which has 100 times more power than the brain. And so working with that and then just seeing all of the pieces of why this got to happen and what I needed to integrate and learn from it and the lessons. And, you know, from that point in 2011 was when my Akashic records first opened to me when I was in the Sacred Valley of Peru. So there's just like this awakening to my gifts and all of the multidimensional aspects. And then there's the very human side of this and these pieces of it that I had been ignoring. And so it was all right, it's time to walk myself home, and that also was the propellant into the divine feminine path because I had been living in such a hard way in my life, a very what I called masculine way at the time, but ultimately it was the patriarchal way of what I had internalized of, you know, work hard, push, force, ignore the messages, override, don't trust your intuition. And yeah, it was ultimately the journey home to self-love because that's what was missing at the core.
Wow. I mean, I first of all, that's the imagery and like the metaphor. What they often do that, right? They're going to connect with us with what we know. But that imagery and that metaphor of you as the climber, I love that. Like showing you that I mean, coming to terms with like this is all happening for me, right? Like I'm prepared for this actually. I've actually trained for this. All my life experiences have prepared me for this moment. So I
Mm-hmm.
love that you had that visual and that they provided that for you. And
Mm-hmm.
like the greater initiation into what you were actually meant to be doing as
Yeah,
well. Like
for
whether
sure.
we because they can see the things that we don't see, right? If we knew it all, man, would there be no fun in life? You'd know everything that's happening and coming for you. Um, so I'm curious about when shamanic work entered your field,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen your posts about your work with the jaguar. So I'm curious if you could tell us more about that.
Yeah, for sure. You know, the shamanic path started to call me, I guess, from a young age because I was being introduced to indigenous wisdom teachings, and so it had been around me. And then I really started to step into it. It was my yoga teacher who introduced me to the shamanic path, which is who I went to Peru with in 2012 or 2011. And that's when I was introduced to the Andean shamanic path. And because we were engaging in some of the practices and stay exposed to the culture and their cosmology, and all of it landed so deeply and felt like home in my body. And then you start to dive into the teachings of the Quechua, who are, you know, the Incan descendants, or the Incas descended, they're the Quechua, the Caro. It's like these are the people of the sun, the children of the sun. And I'd always resonated with that as a child. I felt for some reason that my name meant sunlight. You know, as a child, we have these
Oh, I love that.
interesting associations. And so I became very interested in learning more about the Andean path and started to pursue study. Uh, Once I was back on my feet and teaching again, it actually, you know, at that crashing point, I felt like I will never teach yoga, or I didn't want anything to do with wellness or spirituality. I was also prior to that a personal trainer, and I shared I was a hiking guide, and it was like all of this led to the crash. There was that dialogue, and then I had to move through that and recognize it was opening me to the truth of who I was here to be. And so I started offering retreats in Peru starting in 2014 and ran them all the way up until 2020. And each time just connecting deeper with the land, and the land was just teaching me. It was, the remembrance was pouring through me as I spent more time there. I also co-facilitated. I was introduced to a woman who's a fourth generation curandera in the Sacred Valley, who had been initiated. She'd been initiated by the Condor when she was 12 years old, opening her shamanic path to her. And I, in 2012, had been initiated by a jaguar in the jungles of Mexico. And so that's where that started to open as well. And I found this resonance, and how the shamanic path and the yogic path were so beautifully complementary to each other, these ancient wisdom teachings, and all of them of this focus on the return to light, the connection that we are to the cosmos as these transmitters and conduits of higher consciousness, and that we are multidimensional, moving between realms. And so this felt like resonance, this felt like home, and I started to open more and more of my remembrance in this lineage. And then I've always, I've obviously had the affinity to the Jaguar wisdom, and brought forth a program for women, which was a power path program for women to come into the embodiment of their divine feminine power as a luminous warrioress. And this is where I'd weave in the Jaguar wisdom, because it was supporting women in remembering their their multidimensional, their multiple timelines as seers and healers and oracles, medicine women. We'd remember being in the white tents, in transmitting frequency in high council, being the ones who were delivering the messages of what was to come and how to prepare. And there's just so many layers and levels to this. And so my recent retreat that I had in the Mayan Riviera, because there's such a strong resonance to that land as well, I was weaving this forth and bringing in the Jaguar Woman prophecy, which is, we are remembering ourselves as the ones who can see and lead in the dark, which is how the jaguar moves through the jungle. And the jaguar knows no enemies, and we don't have enemies. In our power, in our signal, in our power, as these transmitters of light, following our intuition. I often say, close your eyes so you can see, where we are so attuned and so honed in to the power of our channel. And this is the level of leadership that we're here to be for the world right now. And so this path is one that weaves in the wisdom teachings. Jaguar as a power animal. Jaguar appears when it's time for you to remember the truth, the power of who you are, that we do move between realms, we bring the messages forth, and that there's nothing to fear. And fear is the illusion that keeps us, like that holds us back, or hold us back from being the fullness, the richness, and the authentic expression of all of who we are here for the world. And we're gifted and encoded with this divine wisdom, and we're here to bring forth those codes. These are the keys that are supporting the planetary ascension.
Yeah. I think I yes. Like I had some, I think earlier on in my spiritual journey I had some jaguar interactions as well. And it was, we did a couple years ago actually. We went to Belize. We went
Mm,
to the Jaguar temple there
yes.
because I was having like visions of this temple. And I didn't know like where it was until I saw like online on social media. I saw pictures of the Jaguar temple and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is a real place. It's in Belize." And so we ended up going there and I had some wild like past life remembrance walking through
Mm-hmm.
it was Lamanai, and I was just like it was so weird. It was like this weird like sensation of like I've been here before and like you used to live here kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Jaguar's incredibly powerful, especially with that like seeing in the dark, like you said, and being able to like lead. through the darkness. Like that's a really important piece, especially with what's unfolding on Earth right now.
Yeah, yeah. And also to to not waste energy. Like if you think about the way a jaguar moves, it's like soaks in the sun,
Mhm.
knows when it's time to move. That level of that precision, the discernment, the and the way that we get to be so attuned and honed into the power of our intuition, our knowing, that we are making decisions that are so clean and so clear. And that's what brings us into even more, well, we could say it's we create the miracles in our life, yet it's really us in the power of our truth and not losing energy or having any interference in our signal. And I often think of that. It's like I would have clients watch videos of how the jaguar moves because it teaches us this is how we get to move in life. This is the jaguar moves through the jungle and it's like everyone steps aside. Or,
Yeah.
there's this magnetism to the jaguar. It's just like this power animal and that feel, that transmission. It's incredible. And yeah, we are picking up remembrance of our times in the temples and working with these different frequencies and being the ones who are moving between realms as carriers of consciousness and cosmic wisdom, and bringing through what needs to be shared ultimately. So there's so many layers to the symbolism of it, but often a lot of women will say, I knew that it was time for me to truly step into my power because the jaguar appeared. And whether that was in a vision, in a journey, or literally in for me it was in the cover of night in the jungle. I could sense its presence, I could feel it, and it was escorting me back to my casita that I was staying in. And it was just such a moment of, are you going to be in fear or are you going to be in trust? And isn't that one of the great questions that we're presented with? Are you going to choose fear or are you going to choose trust? Because in trust, we know that all is conspiring and supporting us and here for us. But if we choose fear, then we'll create a
Yep.
response of that. And so it was such a powerful test to me, an initiation moment for sure of I feel the support of this far stronger than any fear that wants to rise up within me.
And I think that's like the best, like the most succinct way to pretty much say it, right? Because the fear is it's essentially like a self-limitation that we create. Um, it's also like a 3D programmed construct. Yeah. I mean,
Exactly.
what we're conditioned, right? Like we learn at a young age that that's the appropriate reaction to have as a collective, but it's not where we're moving anymore.
Right.
I am curious, like you talk about divine feminine power and this divine feminine path. So for those who want to understand how to step onto this path and connect to this power more clearly, divine feminine, how would you recommend they start working with this power and start connecting to this as a way of being?
Yeah, great question. I see it as we're really remembering our divinity, that the truth of who we are is light in a human suit. And the return to our divinity is the return to the oneness within, one as a fractal of source, one as an expression of the divine. We are one source, each in our own unique individual singularity. And so to work with divine feminine power, to work with the as the divine is first to remember this is who we are. Strip away it all, we are light. And we're here amplifying this and picking up remembrance of this. And at first, the path for me was I went into a deep dive studies with various goddess archetypes, divine feminine archetypes. In one of my paths was the yogic path, so it was working with the Hindu pantheon for a long time. Goddess Kali, she's the ultimate mother, but the ultimate destroyer because she rebirths us. And 20 11, 20, 12 for me was full Kali. Like she was rebirthing me to the truth of who I was. The goddess warrior of oh my goodness, Durga, Lakshmi, the wealth, the opulence, the overflow, studying the aspects of other goddesses, goddess Inanna, she's basically goes and descends through removing all that she was to arrive at that rawness and then reclaim, like this is the rebirth process. And so the divine feminine path, a lot of people think it's like, oh, everyone's just dressed in white dresses dancing around in circle and roses, is like you will meet the depth of who you are. And it is one that many people will resist for as long as possible until, well, the time we're living in forces you to face aspects of yourself that you want to avoid. But what we're reclaiming is the fullness, the richness of the truth as light, as divinity, as the infinite, as unconditional love, which is the vibration that we are taking this new earth into, the fifth dimensional consciousness. So the piece of it that I felt I was being prompted into 2012 was there's so many different theories, and I just remember hearing teachings around the divine feminine was returning to the planet at that time. And so we were reawakening to the feminine who went into hiding, who had been suppressed, who had been stripped of her power. And when we look at the history of humanity, we see all of that until we remember our way back to the beginning, where we lived in union, where we lived in the state of hieros gamos, where it was the union of the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And that's what we've been returning to and remembering. And so all of us, men and women, this isn't gender, this is reclamation of bringing through the divine feminine within. And it's that surrendered state, that unconditional loving state. It's, the power of the divine feminine is the power that creates the universe. And so a lot of my work was bringing women into the remembrance of that level of power that we are. Also working with the different goddess archetypes of ancient Egypt, because Egypt called me home in 2022. And so all of this, it's like Isis, goddess Isis, and Sekhmet, and Hathor, the cosmic mother, and we're just picking up codes of remembrance and unlocking more and more and more of our light, which means we will face the resistances within us to that. And so that is part of the path. But it also is returning to this softer way of living. It's softer, it's more surrendered, it's in synchronicity, and at the same time recognizing the power, the fortitude, and the strength that is required within us to navigate the density that humanity's consciousness had descended into. And so, it's a lot of work around meeting ourselves in our divinity through the portal of our heart and liberating our divine template, our divine truth. I call it the original truth, the original template that we are here to be and live as. And so on the divine feminine path, for many years I attracted women who really operated in that more, we would call it fiery masculine mode. CEOs, judges, doctors, lawyers, Olympic athletes, police officers, police women, firefighters, female firefighters. And it was just like all these women that were in these really powerful warrior type roles, and recognizing that there was no room for the feminine within them. And that's what I also had seen, because the feminine, I didn't feel safe to be in my feminine when I look back. I also had a trauma program of sexual assaults in my story. And so it wasn't safe to be feminine. It wasn't safe to be beautiful. It wasn't safe. And so I lived in that vigilance. And as I started to open this part of me, I just watched like beauty swarm in and the recognition that I could live in this place of reverence and devotion and liberate the sacred feminine within myself to support that liberation on the planet. And that's part of what this path is all about.
So much I could say on that. Like even when you talk about like it's not women in a dress like dancing around in a circle like right, and you're talking about like meeting yourself at the depths of who you are. Again, this happens more and more the more we do these interviews, by the way, but
Mm.
this is like a full circle moment again, right? Because at the beginning we're talking about your authentic self, and that's a form of that, right? Like meeting your like you said, your original template. Like what is the truest form of who you are, and what do you have to do to get there and to discover that. And then even as we talked about the jaguar, like that was the imagery they actually brought through to me was Hecate and the lantern, right? And like walking the path with the lantern, like finding her way, guiding you, finding your way through the dark. So I
Yeah.
just think it's a really interesting imagery to have, especially as you talk about like work with different goddesses and how that can um, energetically calibrate someone as they go through this journey and reclaiming the
Yeah,
path.
yeah, absolutely. And also to recognize, I mean, the feminine force is the force of creation. It's the creatrix. It's the power of volcanic eruptions. It's the power of the oceans, waters. It's all aspects of nature. We are of the earth, of the air, of the fire, of the water, of the ether. And it's that Shakti force, the creative force of the cosmos. And so all of this is connected to this path of remembrance and reclamation, and to understand how truly powerful we are, especially when if we bring it into the realm of also, I work with women 99.99% of the time in my mentorship practice, and how we're picking up this remembrance because we forgot, because we suppressed her, because we learned it wasn't safe to be her. We remember the persecution during the times of the witch hunts, and that persecution lives in the field. And when we allow ourselves to start to reclaim all of these parts of ourselves, and I have a lot of women come to me to support them on their journey of awakening and understanding and navigating the opening and awakening of their sacred gifts, as channels and seers and oracles. And so we're opening up these higher dimensional aspects of who we are, and also recognizing the power of the roles that we have played over the course of history. I mean, we as women were the oracles that the kings would consult for what to do, because we were the seers of the unseen, the seers of the future. And I really feel this was an interesting image given to me, and it's coming through right now, so I'm going to share it. In 2020 was the first time I started to work publicly with the Akashic Records. I worked with them privately and personally for my own life starting in 2011. So it was 9 years later where I felt like, I say, the Divine Mother kicked me out onto stage and said, you need to bring this work forth right now. Because, of course, I still was hiding behind persecution wounds. And there's residue of that I witness again and again, even recently. Yet at that time, I remember I would go into records with women, and immediately I would be shown, it was like we would all zoom back to the witch hunts so we could just clear that timeline out so that it wasn't interfering anymore. We'd go to the witch hunts, and then we'd start to pick up all the remembrance of their timelines of leading in this level of power as queens, as oracles, as seers. And then we'd go all the way back to the beginning. We'd go through Lemuria and Atlantis, pick up that remembrance, clear out the fall of Atlantis, all the pieces. And then I would see the original light, the original source. And it was just like seeing the agreement of, I say yes to this mission. And I would often have this image of this golden key going into the heart and placing the codes of consciousness, the codes of remembrance inside of the heart, closing it. I said yes to the mission. These women would say yes to this mission because they knew they could handle whatever was coming, and they were shown what was coming. And then we spiraled through the dissension of humanity over these cycles of time, whether it's a 26,000 year cycle, whatever we want to call it, the descent from the golden ages of Avalon, Lemuria, Atlantis into the density, eventually into the Iron Age, the Piscean Age, which we're exiting now. And it was like, now is the time for those codes to come forth. You carried them to safety through all of these timelines, through all of this density, through all of the, the chaos, and now is your time. And so you must bring these forth now. We must open this up and we must reconnect the world with the remembrance of the original truth, the creation codes, before they were distorted. And so I'm just like flashing into the temples in Egypt where I was reading the light, reading and reactivating those codes in the temples, in myself, walking on the earth, seeing the light activate. Again, it's all so guided when we are not missing the messages and when we can be in that surrender to the truth of the path we're being called onto, because it will never make sense. It's all
Yeah,
frequency.
absolutely. I think, and I just had that a couple days ago, like a past life remembrance that they brought me into. But it wasn't me being the oracle. It was like as someone witnessing the
Mm.
oracle as like a hand advisor to someone in power, but like witnessing the oracle and the like the level of fear I had over her.
Yeah.
Just a male because I didn't want to be exposed for what for not being as authentic as I should have been, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's a lot of power in that. I do want to ask you, before we get into the spiritual hot seat, because we do a lot of work with Twin Essence around mission and purpose with our clients. I'm curious
Mm.
what you consider your mission and purpose in this incarnation.
Well, I was given specific instructions in 2021, which is I launched my corporation Sacred Femme on 11/11/2021, and I literally was given instructions of, you're here to activate and awaken 144,000, and you are one of the original 144,000, as a wisdom keeper and key code keeper. And so, of course I have the image of the keys, and it's just like, okay, here we go. And so, that's very specific, and at the same
Yeah.
time knowing that my mission here is to activate and awaken and support the evolution into Homo luminous, which is where we are headed in humanity's evolution. And those codes started downloading into me in 2014, where I started to see the transition from the carbon based human into the crystalline based human. And so all of these pieces are part of it. And then it's like here's the divine feminine aspects of it. Here's the light code activation, the DNA activation pieces of it. Here's these other parts of it. And so ultimately, I'm here as a frequency holder and an activator. And when women come into my orbit and are with me there, it's like we just start to open up their remembrance all the way back to the beginning, and then the integration of it into bringing the truth of who they're here to be for the world into form through action. And it is about, the full activation of their gifts, the um, the unlocking of their key codes, and the embodiment of a higher and higher light quotient, and then also building and circulating more wealth on the planet. That's all connected to it, as well as we're in this great global wealth transfer into the hands of women that has never existed before. And then there's just all of there's layers to this, because it's also opening up the solar remembrance of who we are as we step into the embodiment of the solar human that we are transitioning into as well.
I
So
love
there's
that. I love the clarity there. The specificity. Can it get any better than that? I mean, clarity on a mission. Lacey and I talk about this a lot. Clarity on a mission, though, that's like an arrow taking aim, right? Like it is game over. Like it's gonna happen, everybody. So
yeah.
everybody better get in line. And like we always say, like you choose the vehicle to bring it forward, right? Like it's not like our biggest pet peeve, I think, which we'll get into the hot seat. I'm like always like, stop calling your mission a job, stop calling it a career. That's like really 3D programming there. But
Mhm.
you get to choose the vehicle in which you bring that forward, and it's how you co-create it, right? So yeah,
And
I love that.
and ultimately it's transmission. We're here as transmitters. And
Hmm.
so we're here to get as pristine and crystalline with our signal as possible, which is the path of ascension, to to know
Yeah.
thy true self, to remove all of the debris of the programming, to live in the full liberation of the highest expression of the truth of who we are, and bring that through. And so, yeah, at a time, I brought it through as a personal trainer. At a time, I brought it through as a hiking guide, and I would take women to sacred sites. I was led to these sacred sites and around the world, and to these certain portals where we would go into prayer and meditation, and activate and receive. And then it was just unlocking more remembrance. It's like, oh, I remember being here before. And yeah, it's just spiraling it forth. So, the retreats are a key part of it, and have been since 2006. It's actually been 20 years that I've been taking women to different sacred sites and lands around the world to pick up remembrance and support the activation of the grid as a grid worker. That is part of my mission. And yeah, it's such an honor. Like, what an honor to be here at this time. And thank the goddess I said yes, and that I kept saying yes. Even though there was a time when I really was like, get me out of here. It's too dense down here. I remember how light and free it was without this human body. I remember my etheric existence. It was like, take me back to Orion.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I feel you on that. There are times where you're like, what did I sign up for? And you're like, no, we signed up for this. Like, we're doing it.
Yeah.
No one said it was gonna be easy. Like, um, okay, so let's move into spiritual hot seat. Um, we're gonna give you some questions, kind of rapid fire questions, and see what comes out of it. So first question, what is your favorite way to recharge yourself when you feel your life force energy is low?
It's literally going to certain portal points. Uh,
Mm.
and so I've lived in the Canadian Rockies since 2001. So 25 years of mapping this land, of being called by this land into communion with it. And there's certain places that I go. And one of the main ones, which is it's a place that draws people spiritually from around the world, is Lake Louise, which is considered to be the heart chakra of the Canadian Rockies, and also Ascended Master Archangel Michael's retreat space. So there's a lot that pours through there. So there are times when I feel that, but I also know how to teleport. So I'll feel called to plug into different grid points and feel the regenerative frequencies. On a very simple level, it's go be with nature. And I'm typically drawn to somewhere where there's the waters. So whether it's alpine glacial waters that are pouring, that are carrying these codes of consciousness, and just are so incredible to start to work with. I feel that the codes within the waters, or yeah, certain mountains, summits, trail runs. Those are other pieces of it too.
Amazing. Yeah, I had no idea. I mean, I had no idea there was a Archangel Michael
Yeah.
like air like specific like I had no idea. That's so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think water's a big one too
Yeah.
for us too. I feel like, and you know what's funny too is that we're not like ocean people.
No.
Like we're more like lake people.
Yeah.
Not that I like we like the ocean. Like we've been to plenty different parts of the world with the ocean, but it's not like I don't know, it's not the main draw for the two of us. So that's what's funny about it when you mentioned the lake water.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
Okay, next question. What spiritual practice or buzzword makes you roll your eyes?
Divine timing.
We
Divine
need
timing
some
is now.
context.
Divine timing is now.
Okay,
There's no
that's a
such thing as
perspective shift.
divine timing. Divine timing is now because you decide it is, because you are the authority, you are the creator. We are the creator of it all. And so, and I connect that to when people say, well, if it's meant to be, it'll happen. It's like, no, you'll do it.
You're
Or
gonna
you won't.
create it. That's a hot take. I never even thought about it that way when
I
people say that.
I like that perspective shift too because um like we're going through a thing right now where there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes. And there are times where I feel the energetic like pushing, like not like trying to make force something to happen, but like the pushing of like in containers that we're in, I will hear people say things like, I just need permission to like go at my own pace. Totally get it. But I'm a person where I'm like, I just need to hurry the fuck up and make it happen already. And I
Yeah.
feel that, like, I feel that energetic. And I'm like, it's like, hurry up and do it already. Start already, like that kind of thing. So I think I like that perspective shift. I think it's really refreshing. I think that's something I needed to hear.
You know, the only time is now, the eternal now, because all is
Yeah.
happening in the now. And it brings us back into self agency, self authority, and the remembrance that it's all coming from us. It's not putting it outside of us, outsourcing it, putting in someone else's hands or some imagined time in the future. I get preparing certain pieces tangibly, right? There's that side of it. But it's that whole thing of, well, in divine timing, it's like, but you choose divine timing because that's how powerful you are. That's how powerful we are. And it
Yeah,
changes the field.
absolutely. And it's all part of that trusting yourself, right? Like if you're like, uh, I don't know why I'm getting it's like I want if you're like peeking behind the curtain, like, is it happening yet? Is it
Mhm.
happening yet? It's like, no, you decide when to fucking go on the stage and make it. You're the main character. Like
Yes.
you decide when
We're
it's
waiting for
showtime.
you.
So like,
Yeah.
yeah, I totally get what you're saying, and I agree. The
Okay.
applause comes after the show. Sorry, I had to
Yeah. Um,
Exactly.
is okay, what was I now I'm like, what was I gonna ask next? It was, is there any spiritual practice that you used to do that you outgrew with time on your journey?
Oh, this is a good question because I mean, there's been tons of practices over the years. Yet I also recognized that the ultimate practice is presence. So I used to think I had to do a 30-minute meditation every morning. It's amazing. Like it's 30 minutes amazing. The what's going on in the brain because of that is powerful. I love meditation. It's what has helped me hone and refine my channel. But I had created attachment to practices, thinking it had to be like this. And what I've realized over the last few years, and I would say that part of it is part of the stage I'm at in life too. It's a different stage at this part of time in my life at 50. But I realized that the ultimate practice is presence, and it doesn't mean it needs to be a 30-minute practice. It can be 3 minutes. What feels really good for me is being on my yoga mat in a yoga practice. I love a meditation practice, especially in the light of the rising sun, which were my specific instructions in 2020. Meditate in the light of the rising sun, receive the solar codes coming through that are activating the codes of consciousness that you are here to start transmitting. And there's this whole piece to that. But the belief, I used to carry a belief that you had to, wake up, drink your morning lemon water, get on your yoga mat for 30 minutes, meditation, then do your movement practice, which is great. Like I love all of those things, but that doesn't mean you're going to merge with the divine.
Yeah.
It's like checking a box on a to-do list. Like I did the thing to be spiritual today.
And that
Yeah,
attachment, like the addiction to attachment,
yeah.
that is so relatable.
Yeah. I mean, I love ritual. I love, smudging ceremony. I love all of the ritual aspects because it feels like home for me. It's familiar. The ceremonial aspects, it's beautiful. And I have altars all over my home that are meaningful to me. And I think that's, for everyone listening, what is meaningful to you? It's not something specific. You don't have to go put your crystals out under the moonlight. You don't have to do anything. What's more important is what do you personally connect with, because that's what makes it impactful for you.
Absolutely. And on the same, like the flip side of it, is there any spiritual practice that you think is underrated?
Underrated. Oh, that's a good question.
Underrated in the mainstream.
Yeah. I would say stillness.
Yeah.
Stillness, which is connected to presence,
Yes.
because we're, what is happening around us is happening because of what's going on inside of us. And the power of stillness and the power of silence as a practice shifts so much for us, because it's easy to stay in busyness, or I've got to do, like, even I've got to do my morning spiritual practice is like, okay, 3 hours later, okay, now I can meet the world. Meanwhile, there's all of these there's things going on. And I love my mornings. I have, an extensive, beautiful routine that I love for myself. But I think recognizing that in the middle of a day, setting a timer for 3 minutes and just being with presence, being with stillness, being with a cup of tea, and even tuning in to the medicine within the flowers, the plant that is the tea, and receiving through this. Like, there's just so many different ways that silence and stillness, gosh, can transform our lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a good I immediately was having flashes of like shifts and things and stuff that's happening around me right now. I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. There's a lot of changes happening right now, like around me, externally, internally. But no, I think that's a good point, like the power of the present moment, which is I think part of like we always talk about that's part of why we love travel so much is like it forces us to be very, very present. Whereas we might not always give the presence what it needs during like a regular day to day. So, um, yeah, there's a lot that can shift just because of that practice alone.
Because it's downshifting our nervous system. It's
Hmm.
it's bringing us into more regulation, and we're creating all the time, but are we actually conscious of what we're creating? When we come into stillness, when we come into silence, it's an opportunity, one, to observe how much is swirling, 80,000 thoughts, 88% of it the same thing again and again and again. And it's like, oh, because we can get so preoccupied with the doing and productivity and moving things forward that we don't realize what programming is running beneath the surface, what debris in the subconscious is actually what we're leading from, because that's what's guiding our thoughts. That's what's guiding the decision making. And so when we can downshift things and come into that stillness, we often become much more aware. And in that awareness is power.
Absolutely. Two more questions. If you could collaborate with anyone dead or alive, who would it be?
Ooh, let's go Yeshua, Jesus.
Oh my gosh, the last time we asked someone this, they said the same
It's like
thing.
the number one. Wow, going strong. Jesus is comes
Strong.
highly regarded. Let me put it that way.
The power of Christ consciousness.
right? I almost said
Yeah.
Mary Magdalene. I was like, well, I feel like I'm always collaborating with Mary Magdalene, really. So let me go with Yeshua.
Yes.
Like that would be, I wonder what we would get up to, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you're like to find collaboration. Like we
Yes.
do work together. Really, we
We're
do.
working
But
together
yeah.
all the time. But to bring something into form together, that would be very cool.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Okay, last one. In 3 words or less, what is the meaning of life?
Peace, love, and freedom.
Hell yes. Oh, I love that.
Peace, love, and
Absolutely.
freedom. Everything else, really, when I think about it, ties into that.
Yep. I always say unity too. I throw unity in there too.
Yeah.
Or connection, some sort of
Yes.
connection. But yeah, love. Um, all right. So that brings us to how can viewers, listeners, how can they work with you, get in touch with you?
Amazing. So you can follow me over on Instagram at thekristenstuart.com. And I'm in some like renovations behind the scenes right now. So my website feels like a hot mess. It's kristenstewart.com, but there's just the most updated space is actually on Instagram. That's where most people meet me. My offerings are always current on there through my bio site, and people I do offer one-to-one work. I have a signature mastermind called Solara, which is just a living frequency field of a lot of what I've spoken about today around the Christ consciousness, solar consciousness, the return to an activation of the light body, all of these pieces, divine feminine path. We talk about wealth, we talk about all the things. And then I've got my international retreats. And so my next retreat is currently scheduled for next March. I work with the solar portals. That's very significant for me. And so we will be back on those Mayan lands for Illumina 2027, and I've got it open for pre-sale right now. I also have an upcoming retreat here in the stunning Canadian Rockies as part of my Solara Mastermind in the fall equinox portals. So those are some of the destinations. I haven't set anything else up as of yet, though in my realm, some of the places that we do go are Greece, Peru, Egypt, among others that are showing me to gather the women, because one of the messages that I received was gather the women at the waters. And there's such a powerful connection to that. The waters carry all consciousness, as we know, carry the whole history of the universe because it's structured, it's coded, it's sentient. So there's a piece to that. And then yeah, say hi. I'm the one in my inboxes, so on Facebook, on Instagram, and it's just really I love connecting. I love what we are up to all together, and we're far more powerful together. So it's like the more we can build out this incredible circle of light that we are here to be on this planet as these walking suns, these walking pillars, the more power that is supporting where we're headed, because we're bringing through the next golden age. It's already inside of us, it's encoded within us. And it's really an honor to be invited into these sorts of conversations. I really appreciate everything that you are doing with the Ascension path, and just, having a platform that allows others to share their journeys, their paths, because it's where we connect. Often this path can feel isolating, confusing, lonely. Am I going crazy? Is like, no, you're awakening to your truth. And I know for myself back in 2012, I didn't have a huge understanding of what was going on at the time, and how important it is to be in beautiful, powerful communities that where the conversations expand us, where we literally feel our frequency rising, because we're speaking into deeper truths, and they're not the everyday conversations. And so we're all finding each other again, ultimately. And so I also want to thank you for inviting me here to share, and to like, I see us as this return to this global family of light, And like, how epic is life and the world gonna be, you know?
Yeah. No, thank you so much, Kristen. Um, Everybody, the seeds are planted. So run, don't walk. Check out Kristen, connect with her on Instagram or Facebook, check out her website, send her an email, do whatever you need to do. But the seeds are planted and it's time for you to move. Don't wait for divine timing. You are the creator.
Yes.
And these are the exact environments and spaces in which Lacey, or why did I say my name? I mean Marley and I felt speaking right now. Third person. The environments in which Marley and I operate in and engage in. So like all of the locations Kristen's mentioning, like this is the kind of shit that we are drawn to, people. So absolutely check it out. Thank you all for joining us live. All of Kristen's information is linked in the video description below if you want to check her out, give her a follow, and go to her website. And if you enjoyed this conversation, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. You can also connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Twin Essence LLC. And if you're looking to work with Marlon A one-to-one, we recommend either a twin magic reading for an intimate experience or jump over to the Starseed Portal membership where you can be in community with others navigating their Starseed awakenings and ascension journeys. It's all on twinessence.com and it's linked in the video description. We will see you all next week on Wednesday, April 15th. We are going to be with Mario Redinger, and it is going to be all about quantum hypnosis and his work as the soul journeys. So go ahead and check it out. It's going to be at 6:30 a.m. CST, 7:30 a.m. EST. Yes, that's very early. You heard that correctly. Yes, it's a whole time zone thing, and we felt very strongly pulled to bring you this conversation. So don't mind us getting up early. We will do this in the middle of the night if we have to bring it to you. That's how much these conversations mean to us. All right,
Mm.
everyone, and with that, we will sign off.